to find out what exactly we were dealing with. I made my way to my computer and watched it come to life. Then I nervously read the card list. Mouse of clubs, ox of clubs, ox of diamonds, bunny of clubs, bunny of diamonds, dragon of clubs, snake of hearts, rooster of clubs. Well, there you had it. No tiger cards. We were dealing with an enemy. I can't say I didn't expect it. In theory, that enemy would be cut off at the pass now, as we'd find out their identity. But something about that felt unbelievable to me. I just didn't think it was particularly likely. Still, it's not like we could give up hope. Time to stick with the plan. I gave my mouse of hearts to Tiger. Don't! I prayed, hoping that was the right move. And then, as the computer shut down, I left the classroom and started making my way to the library. Time to check the carnage. In the library, everybody just started looking at what was projected on the screen. Everybody's current scores were shown. Mouse has 0 points. Ox has 0 points. Tiger has 6 points. Oh. Bunny has 0 points. Dragon has 0 points. Snake has 0 points. Horse has 0 points. Sheep has 0 points. Rooster has 0 points. Monkey has 0 points. Dog has -1 points. Pig has 0 points. The traitor gave their card to Dog. That's it. And now the question is, that's what Snake brought up before. The question is, do you get to see their card before or after turn? Dog has -1 points. So, this means Snake was right. There's a traitor. We're doomed. Okay, everybody, let's keep calm and think about this. What could this mean? It means that Dog has a tiger card, right? I mean, math isn't my strong suit or anything, but if I understand the whole wheel thing right, a tiger card should be worth -1 point to him. So he clearly has a tiger card. How did that happen though? I looked at him. He was... No one's disputing the fact that he was dead. Most likely someone gave him the tiger card. But what's the fucking point of that? Do not be suspicious. Isn't that dooming us all? Perhaps that is the point. Or it's to simply sow discord. Well, maybe this situation can be salvaged, right? I could get that card from Dog. Can be done. Didn't you hear the rules? Last time around, if someone operated your tablet, you'd be executed. So what this means is we have to get someone else to 9 points and not Tiger. And at the same time... Oh, that's going to be complicated. At the same time, we need to check and make sure that the traitor isn't screwing us all over again. At this time, operating someone else's computer gets you executed. In other words, there's no way to access his computer. And there's no way to force someone to give up a card. Well, that's not necessarily true now, is it? Rooster? You've got an idea for us, don't you, buddy? Just because you'll be executed for using someone else's computer doesn't mean that you can't do it. And if you're quick enough, you could surely make at least one move. You just need someone expendable to sacrifice themselves for the group. So come on now, one of you volunteer. Surely there must be at least one among you who wishes to die a martyr. Rooster, I don't know if that's... Enough. What's more important is the investigation results. What did everyone who checked somebody find? Did anyone have more cards than they should have? Ox looked around the room, only to be met with a wave of shaking heads. So it checks afterwards. What? Surely one of you saw something. Unfortunately, Ox, these results appear to indicate that the check gives you the number of cards the person you looked at had at the end of the turn. Meaning somebody could have handed off their tiger card to Dog and we'd be none the wiser. It appeared the search was fruitless. Well then, first things first, the tiger win is off the table. Tiger, you should try and unload those points. Give your most valuable cards to the people who get the least amount of points from them. The rest of us, well, I don't know. Keep checking the amount of cards each other has. I need to think. With an absent look in his eyes, Ox wandered off. And like that, the group began to scatter. But now we were directionless. We didn't have a plan. People were beginning to panic. Panic was beginning to spread. And that was the cat's true goal, wasn't it? Still, something about the results being shown seemed wrong to me. I decided to try pacing on the first floor. That always helped me focus. I walked around the whole area focused on the results. What was wrong with him? What was rubbing me the wrong way? Despite concentrating quite a bit, I couldn't come up with it. I decided to look for Ox. He was a good person to bounce ideas off of. After a bit of a search, I found Ox sitting in a classroom on the second floor. So, have you thought enough? I doubt I'd be able to think enough given a few hours, much less a few minutes. Basically, the issue I keep running into is the fact that we don't know who the traitor is. It also looks like the traitor intends to sink us, no matter the cost. If you also factor in the fact that Snake's theory about the cat relaying the right moves to the traitor, and combine it with the fact that the cat is specifically sending us the cards needed to mess with us, the possibility of a no-winner situation is a lot more likely than I'd like to admit. I think the best course of action is to, as I said, focus solely on checking each other. This will make it incredibly difficult for the traitor to do much of anything. As the rounds go on, there will be more and more cards on the communal table. Eventually, when they're only adding 2 cards at a time, we'll regroup and try to come up with a better plan. I think that's a pretty reasonable idea. I think so too, but I don't particularly feel that great about it. Yeah, I can see that. Say, do you think... To be honest, I don't quite know what I planned on asking Ox. That train of thought was interrupted when I heard a loud scream. The scream of a woman. It came from a nearby classroom somewhere on the same floor. Immediately, Ox and I ran out to try and identify the source of the noise. On the second floor, we saw Bunny and Monkey also running out from the nearby library. We didn't have time to talk, we just made our way to where the noise came from. To the classroom where Dog's exploded body lay. Ox tried to push open the door, but something was blocking the way. He shoved on the door again, and it made but an inch's progress. Just then, Bunny moved Ox out of the way and began to shove on the door. With Bunny's efforts, it began to crack open. It appeared the door was blocked off by that bookshelf I had seen in the room earlier. Once there was enough room to enter, Bunny made his way in, as did the rest of us. Entering, we were immediately struck by the realization that this place was pitch black. Not just lights off black, but pitch black. As our group slowly, blindly made our way into the room, I suddenly felt a body crashing into mine. I fell to the floor and landed squarely on my ass. Ow. By the commotion, it sounded like I wasn't the only person knocked into. In this commotion, we heard the door slam shut. What the hell? Just as I was getting to my feet, the lights turned on. It appeared Ox had found the light switch by blindly patting on the wall. Once the light was on, Bunny ran over to the door. He tried to open, but he struggled to get it open. Damn it, someone's holding it shut. His determination to open the door was understandable. He wanted to see who had fled from the room. But it struck me as rather odd. After all, in the other corner of the room, Pig was lying dead in a chair right by Dog's computer. Her neck was slashed by some sort of bladed instrument. Blood was all over the place. Pig, no. How on earth? Why would... I was struggling to stay on my feet. Once again, someone who was alive but half an hour ago lay dead in front of my eyes. Not just dead, murdered. Finally, Bunny pried the door open. He made his way outside and Monkey, Ox and I immediately followed him. However, outside the room there was nobody to be seen. Then moments later, Tiger came running in from the left staircase. Hey, I heard commotion. What's going on? Right after that, Sheep ran in from the right staircase. I thought I heard a lot of shouting. Before long, everyone was gathered in the classroom. That gathering process had given me plenty of time to digest Pig's death. And it wasn't sitting right with me. It felt cold, like a stone sitting in the bottom of my stomach. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve this at all. And yet, she died. Just like anyone might, she died. Murdered. By somebody. Likely somebody in the school. Hated this. I hated this. I hated this. No, focus. Flip the switch. Let go of the fear. I shouldn't be scared. I should be angry. I should be livid. I should be determined to find the culprit. So, tell me if I'm getting this wrong. Mouse, Ox, Bunny, Monkey, you all heard Pig scream out, probably from the whole being murdered thing. You run over to the scene of the crime. You try to get in, but the criminals knocked over this bookcase to buy time. But still, you make your way in, determined to catch them. Unfortunately, it's too dark to see anything, and in this darkness, the killer makes their escape, knocking into the lot of you. It appears to be the case, yes. It's so frustrating. We had them, and yet in the darkness, the chaos, they somehow got away. I don't deserve to call myself a cop. Don't say that like being a cop is some fucking badge of honor. Still, I must ask, what was Pig doing here? By the looks of things, she was sitting down to use the computer. But I should note that this is Dog's computer, not hers. And the murder didn't even happen when the computer should have been usable. No. I think I know what happened to her. You do? Pig said that she was going to try to hack into one of these computers to try and help us all. I encouraged her, and here she is, dead. This is my fault. Well, obviously you'd hack into your own computer, wouldn't you? Why the hell would you hack into Doc's computer? That makes no sense. Because of me, she went ahead and did something stupid. And now she's dead. Mouse, calm down, remember to breathe. Listen to me, this isn't your fault. The only person at fault, the only person possibly at fault is the killer. Not you. But then if Pig was doing something that might expose the mastermind, isn't that being the person who killed Pig was the mastermind? I don't think that's possible. There are too many people in this school walking around. If they went inside, the chances that someone would stumble across them are pretty high. I just don't see them taking a risk. So then Pig's killer is one of us? But then why would any of us kill Pig? We already discussed the possibility of a traitor, did we not? If Pig attempted something the mastermind would not like, it's reasonable to assume that the traitor may act on their behalf. No one knew what to say to that. It's truly tragic. If only I'd known what Pig was doing in this room when I tried to enter earlier, I wouldn't have left so early. Wait, you came by here earlier, Snake? Yes, unfortunately the door was locked. Locked? Do you mean it was blocked by a bookshelf? No, I mean it was locked. I can tell the difference. Oh, anyways, after discovering that it was locked, I left the area. Eventually, I ran into Bunny, who was interviewing Rooster in a classroom on the first floor. I can confirm that. Inspired by Mouse, I've been trying to get people's statements on various things, see if that'll help us sort anything else. After Snake entered, I finished my interview with Rooster. I wandered for a bit until I found Monkey reading a book in the library. Indeed, Bunny did catch me reading in the library. The two of us had an interesting chat from there until we were interrupted by... Monkey didn't feel like saying anything beyond that. We could fill in the gaps ourselves. So, you know what that means? What? It means it wasn't me. After all, I was always with someone the entire round. Thus, I am cleared from suspicion. Trust me, Rooster, nobody thought you were behind this. Oh, hey, what's that supposed to mean? Are we done here? If so, I want to leave. I have no desire to be in a room with a murderer. Or a dead body. And this place stinks. And like that, one by one, everybody funneled out of the room. Until eventually it was just Ox and I in the room. So it appears the group's not going to even attempt to solve this case. You expect? They're not a crime-solving team, they're a bunch of scared strangers who have a really high possibility of dying very soon. I suppose, but the only way we can certainly put an end to this is to stop the traitor. Ox, who do you even think the traitor is? Like, what are they getting out of it? It could be any number of things. Perhaps the traitor is being blackmailed. Maybe they're doing it for money. Maybe they're in league with our captain. Although in that last scenario, I would also have to try and figure out our captain's motive, another rather significant mystery. You're right. Last time sucked, but I could get what the Jade Emperor was going for. It very clearly was a weird act of revenge as well as a really roundabout way of testing our characters. But this? It's as though it's being done for, I don't know how else to say it other than it being done for fun. Some twisted psychopath's version of fun at any rate. You're not incorrect. Still, it's probably a waste of time to try and solve such big picture things. Instead, let's try and do what we can here. Do what we can, huh? Yeah, that seems about right. Pig, I didn't know you super well, but you seem decent. At the very least, I'm convinced you risked your life trying to save us all. It might not have worked out, but I wouldn't let your death be in vain. So then, time to begin investigating. Where to investigate? I'm probably gonna have to investigate everything anyway, but let me quickly save here. And I'm gonna need to take a quick break because I need to go to the toilet. So I'll be right back. Alright, let's continue. Where do we want to investigate first? I guess we'll look at the body. You couldn't do an investigation without examining a dead body, right? As disgusting as it was, I had to take a look. Sure enough, Pig's body was collapsed onto the seat facing towards the computer. The computer had just had the same waiting screen all of the computers did. If Pig had hacked the computer, it sure didn't show it. Her neck was slit with a bladed object, and she probably bled to death very quickly after that. Sitting on the desk next to the computer was that damn golden knife from Dog covered in blood. So then, Pig was killed with the golden knife? One would assume. That seems weird to me. Oh, and why is that? I mean, think about it. Where did they get the knife? From Dog's exploded body, I'd imagine. I mean, the explosion wasn't that big, it mostly affected the stomach. See, look, the bottom half of his legs are mostly fine. Surely the culprit could have gotten the knife from Dog's boot. I think what Mouse is referring to is how would they have known? Okay, first up, disgusting. Secondly, that's my point. Someone just grabs a knife from Dog's corpse and Pig just keeps on hacking away? She might not have noticed if she was focused enough on her hacking. But would she just keep on obliviously hacking if anyone was in the room with her? I mean, we were on high alert, thinking there was a traitor among us. It must have been someone Pig trusted. But it's Pig we're talking about. Given the situation, do you think there was anybody among us she would trust? I suppose not. In my opinion, from the state of the crime, I think the most likely situation is that the culprit walks into the room and slit Pig's neck without her even noticing. But that's why the weapon is messing with me. There's no way the killer could have collected it without Pig noticing. So then what are you saying? What does this mean? Both of those are reasonable. I would say the killer took... there could be... Was there... I'm gonna say the killer took the weapon earlier. I think the killer must have taken the weapon from Dog at an earlier point. Earlier point? I suppose it's possible. But don't you think it's a little coincidental that the scene from which they stole the weapon just so happened to be where they later murdered? Just kinda seems a little too convenient. I mean, you're right, but... I don't know. It was a confusing situation. But surely it meant something, right? I tucked the information in the back of my mind and kept on going. The windows. The windows definitely drew attention. The blinds were covering them, but it wasn't just that. The blinds were taped down onto the wall to completely seal out all potential light. The duct tape used to do it was sitting conspicuously on a student's desk. So the killer taped down the window blinds. I guess they really didn't want us seeing them, which makes sense, of course. But Ox, when did they have the time to do this? I mean, there's two windows on the south wall there and they're both taped up. After killing Pig, did the killer really have time for something like that? Well, it's not like we got to the scene instantly. Plus the door was blocked, so that surely bought us some time. Are you saying that the murder went something like, the killer slashes Pig, she cries out in pain, immediately the killer runs over to the bookshelf and topples it to buy time, then they grab some duct tape and quickly tape the blinds over the windows? You mentioned convenient earlier, that sure sounds convenient as well. Finally, they turn off the lights and wait, presumably right as we're finally getting in. That's what the scene would suggest. Sure, but for the killer to immediately spring into action like that, it seems unbelievable. Well, we're not dealing with an amateur, that's for sure. Whoever the killer is, they're intelligent, determined, and dangerous. Frightening, to be sure. It sure is, Ox. It sure is. Bookshelf. I decided to take a look at the bookshelf that had blocked our way earlier. It was still toppled on the floor, pushed away from the northern wall by the door opening. A bunch of books were all piled on the floor next to it. And with all those books on the floor, I noticed something. It's weird. What's weird? All the books are out of the bookshelf. That tends to happen when it's shoved down and pushed away, Mouse. No, I mean all of the books have fallen out. I get spillage, but surely there'd still be some books inside the bookshelf. But instead they're all on the floor around it. Oh, you're right. It's as though the books were thrown onto the floor before the bookcase was toppled. But why would anyone do that? Don't ask me. While we're noting oddities, I think I found something strange as well. Hit me with it. Looking at the marks on the floor, it appears that the bookcase was pushed towards the eastern wall before even being toppled. If it was shoved down from where it initially stood, it would have completely blocked off the doorway. Hell, it might have hit the western wall. but this bookcase was shoved away from that wall and then toppled over. Huh. Well, I can actually think of an explanation for that. As I said, if it was shoved where it was already standing, it could have impacted the western wall. If the bookcase was just leaning against the wall, it would have been a lot easier to shove out of the way. Maybe the culprit thought of that ahead of time and moved the bookshelf a bit before shoving it down. In fact, that might explain the books as well. With all the books out of the bookshelf, it'd be a lot lighter and easier to move. If that was the case, the killer sure had their wits about them. I noticed that the bookshelf was too close to the wall and then to empty the bookshelf just to move it slightly before shoving it over. Is that a reasonable explanation? Was that a reasonable sequence of events? Let's look at the door then. I decided to give the actual door to the room a look. The doorway was right by the western wall. Snake mentioned the room being locked earlier. After looking at it, sure enough, from inside the room the door handle had a turnable lock on it. Weird, really weird. I guess Snake was telling the truth. Probably, but doesn't that bring up a whole new set of problems? I mean, why bother with knocking over the bookshelf if the door already had a lock on it? Or perhaps the killer didn't know about the room's lock. In that case, how did the killer get in the room in the first place? I mean, right? If Pig locked the room to hide her hacking, which, fair enough, then how did the killer get access? I don't know, Mouse. It's certainly odd. I kept looking at the door, looking for anything out of place. And that's when I saw it. Is this glue? Let me see. Fox moved closer to inspect what I was looking at. Sure enough, there seemed to be traces of glue on the side of the door and the inside of the doorway. This actually makes a certain amount of sense. There's surely a lot of glue around the school. There might have been some in this very room. The killer was manually holding the door so Bunny couldn't open it, then they'd be by the scene of the crime when he finally got it open. So instead, the killer must have glued the side of the door before fleeing to hold us off. Right. For once, something was adding up at this crime scene. Just to be sure, I kept inspecting the door, looking for anything else out of place. I thought this was just a waste of time until I noticed something else. High up in the crack between the door and its hinges, I saw some more traces of glue. Now what would glue be doing up there? I suppose it could also be there to try and keep the door locked, but it's certainly not where one would typically apply glue. I made sure to take mental note of that. Well, I think that's about everything to look at here. I have to agree. But did you figure anything out? To be honest, I couldn't say that I did. But at the very least I had figured out that something wasn't right. This is just really exhausting. We don't have time to be exhausted, frankly. Sad, but true. God, why does everything have to be so complicated? Well, let's try keep things simple. Let's think about who could have messed with the tiger cards. Horse and tiger, sheep and snake and rooster and monkey all couldn't have grabbed that spare card. Which leaves you, me, dragon, bunny and pig. So then the killer has to be someone from that list? That would be my assumption. In that case, let's try and narrow things down a bit more. Pig's the victim, so she's out. You, me and Bunny were all accounted for when the murder occurred, so we're out. Which leaves... Dragon? Think Dragon's the killer? It's certainly what logic dictates. I couldn't argue with Ox's logic, but the idea that Dragon was behind this felt wrong. We'd spent quite some time locked up together at Dogs. For her to be behind something like this... It didn't sit well in my stomach. I don't know, Ox, we might be making some bad assumptions. We might be. Which is why we'll confront her in private about this next round. Although for now we should probably get going. This round's certainly almost over. And I think we've gotten all we can from this place. Wait. With that, we left the crime scene and made our way back to our computers. On the way we passed by the library, which had its doors completely shut. I mean, the doors to the library weren't completely shut like this, were they? I turned around. Ox was right. They weren't. I don't like where this is going. Despite saying that, I immediately walked right over to the doors and opened them. Don't be a corpse, don't be a corpse, don't be a corpse. Damn it. Lying down, blood gushing from his neck, was the pitiful figure of Rooster. Damn it. This can't be. Not a victim? Seriously? How long could this go on? How long until this nightmare would end? Another death, another... Hold on. Oh my god, he's not actually dead yet. You're right. Quickly, we need to stifle the bleeding. Spurred into action, I rushed towards Rooster's body. I looked around for something to use and saw a box of tissues. It wasn't ideal, but it had to do. I immediately took tissues out by the dozen and began pushing them on Rooster's neck, trying to do something to stop the blood from completely leaking out. Ox ran in behind me with a tape dispenser. He taped the tissues I was pressing against Rooster onto his neck. He used a copious amount of tape to the point where it probably stopped mattering. After that... what else do we do? I don't know if there's anything else we can do. It's not like there's any serious medical supplies around or anyone with experience. Hopefully with this he might not completely die before we get around. Although even that's optimistic. That's... Once again I could feel the weight of my heart. Even after trying to save him like this, Rooster would be... Wait it. Time was precious. Instead of moping, I looked around the scene. By the looks of things, Rooster had been stabbed twice in rapid succession on the left side of his neck. A bloody pen lay a few feet away from him. That must have been a makeshift weapon. The whole thing looked like a spur-of-the-moment conflict. Rooster was collapsed right next to a desk. I took a few steps back and looked around. A few feet away from the desk, a massive dictionary was left on the ground. I walked over and picked it up. It had quite a bit of weight to it. Mouse, what are you doing? Investigating. Are you? Yeah, I am. Are you? That's... Ox, a murder happened right under our noses. We were in the room just by here, and yet someone ends up dead so close by. And this time there isn't a clear motive. If we don't do something soon, we're all going to die. Correct. People's lives are on the line. Which is why I'm asking you why you're picking up a fucking book when a man is bleeding to death right here. It's not a book, it's a clue. Before you could argue anymore, the 2-minute warning alarm sounded. Looks like we don't have time to discuss anything more. Looks like it. Let's quickly handle that, then get everybody back here. Agreed. And like that, the two of us ran down the stairs and down the hallway. I was making my way to my classroom when I noticed something the way Ox had noticed something earlier. I could have sworn that the restroom door wasn't actually closed all the way before, that it was slightly propped open. I paused my jog for just a quick diversion as I looked in. Immediately I knew where I wanted to check. If a restroom was used at this point, it would be used for one reason. Sure enough, I could see traces of blood having been washed away in the sink. I didn't have time to register that though. I needed to get back to my classroom. The computer turned on pretty much right away when I entered the room. I already knew I was just going to check pig. However, as I moved my cursor to that button, I did a once-over of the community table. Mouse of clubs, ox of diamonds, tiger of clubs, bunny of diamonds, dragon of clubs, snake of hearts, rooster of clubs, rooster of diamonds, rooster of spades, monkey of hearts, monkey of clubs, monkey of diamonds, monkey of spades. Wait, what? One thing that stood out is that one of Tiger's cards had returned. We destroyed 3 of them, the 4th one had returned. How? Maybe Pig managed a way to hack into Dog's computer so that she would be able to return the card Dog held. Or I could even double check what I had seen. My hand had already pressed a button to check Pig. The screen paused for a moment, then displayed 0 cards. And like that, I was left with emptiness. No, not emptiness. Room. A single piece of evidence may only be a spark, but if you make a spark in a room full of gunpowder, you could really stir shit up. I remember the conversation I had with my dad. I asked him how he built a defense for a client. It's a lot like playing dominoes. Dominoes? Yes, dominoes. I can play dominoes. Well then, you might make a great defense lawyer someday. See, first you have the evidence discovery period. That's where you learn all of the facts of the case. You collect testimonies, evidence, expert opinions. Every piece of information, each one's a domino being placed. You don't really see these at first, but they're all a bunch of dominoes. And at some point, you're going to get a domino that wobbles. Something that doesn't make sense. You let that domino fall, and it's going to knock over another domino. And that one might knock over 2 more dominoes. And if you've done your job right and you've collected all the information you needed, and if your client really is innocent, you should end up knocking over all the dominoes in one fell swoop. I don't really get it. Oh well, maybe I'm being a bit too metaphorical about this. Basically, I don't really do a lot of work. It's not true. You work all the time. It's true. I collect a lot of evidence and find a lot of laws to cite. But in terms of mounting a defense, I don't do a lot of work. I just keep an open and keen mind, and eventually the prosecution's case won't fit together. And once I think about what that contradiction means, it will naturally lead to another thing that doesn't make sense, and so on. I found that the truth has a way of getting out, like it or not. The only question is whether or not you're going to be receptive to the cause of that truth. That's right. I just need to be receptive to the truth. I had collected so much information throughout all of this. So many dominoes. It's impossible for so many things to happen without a pattern beginning to form. It's honestly kind of simple. First, I needed to look at the parts that didn't make sense. Then I needed to make them make sense. And in order to make them make sense, I'd need to come to some sort of answer. And if that answer made other things not make sense, well, I'd just need to repeat the process. Until all the dominoes had fallen down. What to recall? Okay. Let's start at the top. Oh well, let's actually save, because why not? The rules of the Zodiac race. Okay, attention to all enemies. Okay, so this... Okay. Put the animal masks over our heads. Everyone advanced their television, flick it on. Jade Emperor leaning back in a chair. Couldn't tell where he was sitting. The room behind him was too dark. However, it seemed that this was a live feed. Jade Emperor wore a mask which completely covered his face, as well as a green hoodie, jeans, and some gloves. I couldn't help but notice that by his left hand I could see part of a butterfly tattoo sticking out. Yeah. This is just the same. Okay. Mostly just a repeat. Yes. Fine. Go on. Okay. So now that I know that these are just repetitions of what actually happened, I don't need to check out all of them. Go on. Okay. I know the rules of the Zodiac bit still. The problem is I think I remember everything. Mostly. Let's consider more. Give me a hint. Hit this button to help advance Mercer's reasoning. If you're stuck, it's okay to ask for a hint. But once you get a hint, try pondering for a bit before asking for another. Okay, sure. Then I've pondered for a while. I've pondered throughout all of this while doing the case, basically. So I want one hint.